In this episode, you're going to see us buy the cheapest race car on My 105, take it to a track day and break it, design and fabricate our own shock tower system for the car, then get it back out on track for an 8-hour endurance race at Sandown.
He's got a brand new car, looks like a Jaguar. It's got leather seats, it's got a CD.
Welcome to the channel, and welcome to this little red car and how it got to where it is now after purchasing it, then breaking it, then fixing it, then getting it back out on track to essentially win our class in a motor events racing event at Sandown. Now, it's a pretty casual affair, but hey, a win's a win and we're going to take it. So, what started out as Gary jumping in a mate's car and taking part in a motor events race at Calder Park earlier in the year, then snowballed into a couple of days flicking through Facebook Marketplace, then just jumping on My 105, and the first thing that popped up was this little red car. I fell in love. Well, we both fell in love. Within a couple of days, we'd borrowed a car trailer, jumped in the ute, and gone all the way to Adelaide, leaving at about 1 o'clock in the morning, to meet the guy at 7 a.m. before the workshop opened where he's working, take him for a little test drive. Obviously, it's still registered at the time and in South Australia. Then pay the money, throw it on the car trailer, get all the way back home to Ballarat by 5 in the afternoon, and said, yep, we've bought ourselves a race car. Now what do we do? What do we want to do? Well, motor events racing was going to be top of the list for us. That was a pretty easy category to get into, but we didn't want to hinder the car and have it not capable of being able to do tarmac rally events, hill climbs, things like that. And to do that meant putting in a national spec cage. So getting in touch with AGI Roll Cages out of Sydney, we sent through an email asking, what can you provide us? They had already done a club spec cage for exactly the same car. They just needed the engineers to update some drawings to meet the national spec cage levels. So that included a couple extra bars like roof bars, a secondary door bar, double intrusion bars, little things like that. They'd sent through a drawing of what it was going to look like off CAD. We hit the go button, and 12 weeks later the cage arrived, which happened to be about 12 hours prior to us going on track for our Sandown race. Now, whilst we're waiting for the cage to arrive, we hit the track at Broadford for a track practice day, which is a little complex about an hour north of Melbourne on the Hume Freeway. For the day, our aim was to test our comms set up in the car, get to know the car, how it behaves, how it handles, what its strong points were, what its weak points were, and just have a lot of fun. And that's exactly what we did. We went out, did about 2 hours of driving all up in 15-minute sessions between Gary and I. We were lucky enough to be segregated by, there was 4 sessions. So I was in Group A, Gary's in Group C. I'd be able to come in, change drivers, have 15 minutes spell, have a yarn. Then Gary go out on track, he'd do his 15-minute stint. We'd be able to come back and have a bit of a chat about how things were handling. We had a bit of electrical gremlins in the car then. That's when we noticed that lights were coming on, windscreen wipers were working for some strange reason, a few little issues like that. Also very unstable under brakes, so that was a pretty hot topic for us at the time. At the end of the top straight, the car would just want to dive left and right under hard braking. So we're a little bit concerned. Well, not concerned, we just knew that there was an area that had to be worked on. Both Gary and I being as competitive as we are, obviously lap times were very much on the forefront of our mind. We're competing a little bit, but as you can see, we're just so close, and it's very common for us to have very similar numbers when it comes to lap times in so many things that we do. And we've got very similar driving styles, although having the race box in the car allowed us to then go away, have a look at the data, analyse where one of us may be faster into or out of a corner, how we're tracking our lines, what sort of gears we're using through different parts of the track to be able to get a better entry and exit speeds, how late we might be braking going into a corner. There's just a lot of data that can be extracted from the race box. We wore out the set of Nankang AR1s that came on the car, and we went through a set of brake pads in that 2-hour stint. So that was a learning curve for us. Straight away we knew that we had to do something about tyre tread wear, brake size, so that we could get some longevity for any endurance race we're going to enter. But that wasn't really the main problem at the end of the day. When I did get a chance to jump in with Gary as a passenger, I noticed that we were hitting bump stops under some pretty heavy load through the chicanes at the top of the track. Now, it wasn't super concerning initially, we just knew that we'd have to change a spring rate, but upon inspection the next day, that's when we noticed we'd done some damage. Our Broadford, what, you're not started yet?
I've started.
You've started?
I started.
So after our Broadford episode, first track day, got in the car with you and I felt like we're hitting bump stops. Turns out the shock was travelling all of the way, like the shock travel was all the way to the top. Now we've since pulled everything out and this top and the actual car camber tops for this car aren't not related. They're not related. You can't buy adjustable cambers for camber tops for this car. So previous owners obviously made it work through using something else. As we've pulled it apart, we've found and diagnosed there's a few issues. Some stuff's rubbing against stuff. So the sway bar links are rubbing against the inner guards, just on the hind links. Also, you can see here that these have been rubbing here. There's been a bolt that's rubbing in there. And what that is, that's the bolt that mounts the top camber plate to the top of the strut tower in the car. They've had to die grind this out, or it's worn out, or they've actually you can see they're a cap screw and they've actually machined it down, or used a grinder and machined it down so you can get the purchase on there. So it's not exactly correct. So making sure as you're going to pull one of these apart, keep everything in line. Look, I line everything up on the bench, so then I can't stuff it up and I put it back exactly the way it's meant to go.
He says he can't, but we'll see.
That's what I try to. And then you find you run out of bench and you end up putting it somewhere else anyway. So yeah, somewhat like that. And the reason, then getting back to the reason why we're at this stage, is because spring rate is not correct to the car, to what the abuse that Gary puts it through.
Well, I wouldn't call it abuse. I would just call it spirited driving.
Yeah. So we've since been in touch, and we've got in touch with a few guys. We've got in touch with BC Coilovers, or BC Racing, because they do set a bit of a standard. They didn't really have any answers either, and that's where we learnt that you couldn't buy adjustable camber tops, because they said they don't just make them for this car. Like, oh, okay, so the old mate's retrofitted something else, and which he has. So, but the guy his name's Ash at DVS Performance in Geelong, is a rep for Gaz Shocks, and that's what these are. These are Gaz coilovers, which would come in the car. And he's fantastic. Jumped on the phone to him, explained the situation, and said, look, this is where we want to go with it. This is the problems we're having. And he is just fantastic. He said, like, yeah, we can sort that problem out. He said, give me some information about what coil you've got in there. He told me where to find potentially the coil, the spring rate for these coils. He said, failing that, we can always run the calculations and we'll find the right coil to suit what your style of driving is, or suit the car essentially. Ordinarily on these you should see on the top a stamped, and they do say they're meant to be stamped, spring rate for your coil. We don't have anything on the bottom, don't have anything on the top, but they obviously have written it at some stage. It's just worn off, as you'd expect, so it should be really stamped. And then you should be able to buy a coilover with the correct spring rate coil to suit your car. And there's a whole bunch of information that you need to provide or need to work out or have with your car to get exactly the right spring rate that you need. And that also has a bit to do with what application you want to put the car through too. So, back in the shed, we have the car on the hoist, and using a laser we have it leveled. The reason for this: after we've cut the towers out of the car, we need to ensure our reference points are accurate. Then it was just a matter of prepping the car to protect it from the sparks during fabrication. We also found a couple of hidden surprises behind the windscreen washer motor. Oh, hurrah! See rock on here. With the towers cut out, it was a trip down to garage to pick up one of our spare cars for reference measurements. Well, you got a booster seat for me? Yeah. So this has to go on the trailer. The trailer doesn't fit up here, and there's not enough room. I'm only limited to doing 80k an hour to get on there. Had a little bit of loving. Love tap from a kangaroo, supposedly. That one, and this one we picked up, and this one we bought first. Well, not first, but and drove it home. So this one's got fancy wheels on it though. Well, not really. I think these are fancy enough. Door still opens. Gary's been in here pulling stuff apart. Check out wiring, because we've got wiring issues on the red one. Yeah. Gonna be exciting times. Not a fan of that much. Anyway. Hopefully that's still there when we get to Avoca.
In your squeeze. Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea. Hope the brakes work.
Soon find out on the way down. So far so good.
So far so good. What? Right.
Can't wind the window now, can I?
I'll stand out front and give you the all clear.
Yeah, righto.
Just start her up. You want to go that way?
Turn it sharp, it stops.
Hey?
I turned it sharp, it stops. Go run down there and line me up.
Straight! Out of left. Chicken out and hit the brake.
So this is our Saturday night. With the white car back up at my workshop, it was time to strip it down to get access to the tower tops. take some measurements on their placement and find some reference marks that are in an identical place to the red car. Keeping in mind that the other 3 cars are diesel, we'll get to see just how similar they actually are. Sure enough, even down to the spot welds, the structure was the same. Now it's just a matter of deciding exactly how close to factory we wanted this concept design to finish up. We have now got the front marked out where we want our tower tops to go, which meant putting the laser in here to measure off where it was square across the front of the vehicle, and also measured off a straight edge to measure our height. We've got that marked out using the other car as a reference.
We're quite lucky. We checked all the measurements of that car. Look, even the spot welds exactly the same.
Yeah.
So we're really lucky to get some great reference points on the measurements to make sure we get our centre line. So yeah, now's the time we start cutting and start welding.
We'll just sneak up on this. I've marked out around here. I've marked out with a texter after measuring distance back, the setback essentially. So we've got our right caster. We've also measured in here to get our camber middle range because we do have adjustment in the top.
There has been some discussions over this, but yeah, we'll go. We're going to go a little bit further in than what factory was, so it's going to give us a little bit more adjustment.
Yeah, we can always go what would be considered positive camber on the adjustment, which might still be negative camber for the car, but it will allow us to give us greater negative camber in the event we have to, or we can afford to. We don't know the depth of what this pipe's going to be. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of pipe sitting over there, so we can have that as big or as small as we need to.
It's going to sit up there.
It was just real long travel shots.
Cut a hole in the bike.
Go from there.
All right, so time to spark up.
I see what you did there. Well, I'm back in the shed. It's a week later. That's our practice pieces. I've got our pipe cut out to our length. 55mm it worked out, so that gives enough on either side to protrude through to the bottom of the guard. Got our laser cut sections. I'm about to glue these on with my glue stick. First I'm going to do a couple of practice welds, make sure I got it dialed in. Then I can sit it up in the car, get them all lined up, we'll glue them into the car, ready to go. The bench isn't always this clean, not normally like this. And it's not just for filming purposes, I actually decided to clean it properly. So I'm up in my workshop at the moment, happy days. Got my coffee mug with me, drinking coffee on my coffee mug, on my coffee mug, on my coffee mug. Oh, it's cold here this morning. Not too bad. Good bit of penetration. Don't worry, I'm nervous. Not too sure I'm going to get the same finish on that. Oh, we'll see how we go. One down. A little bit undercut there. Oh well, a little bit hot. A lot hot. But pretty pleased. Not going to fall apart. That's the easy bit though. Getting that welded, that thickness material welded into the car could be a little bit different. It's not going anywhere. It's good. Like, it's not too bad. I can't see if that's focusing or not. There's plenty of penetration, plenty of heat, plenty on it. It's not going to go anywhere. These are not the section or the part. This isn't the part that's going to fail out of this whole top. So, yeah, pretty happy with that. Okay, they're welded up. and they've cooled down enough for me to actually hang on to. Got the car down off from out of space and cleaned up the other side tower around the edges and the underside as well, because we're going to weld top and bottom. That's the plan. Then next step is for me to find center, or find our markings, the center of those bolt holes, because that's essentially where our coilover strut is at 0 camber. We then got our adjustability this way, sorry, caster. It's where the coilover top is situated, and that's the standard caster that bolts on the underside. And then we've got our camber adjustment that way. Now, so I'm just going to put a masking tape across this, mark the masking tape and run that down the edges like that. So then I can line that up with our marks that we still have on the car, which is this edge here on both sides. There's a white mark still there. Luckily I can see it, but there's one on this side there. Once it's sitting right, which is essentially how this hole is, we measure down from our mark here to the desired height. We'll then level it out, tack it in place, double check it. I may even run the laser over it, see how we go. Well, not see how we go, that's what I'm going to do. Then it's ready to weld in. We're done. I'd love to paint it. Obviously, my business here is a sandblasting and painting shop. So, as usual, mechanic's car doesn't get any mechanical love. Painter's car or sandblaster's car doesn't get much paint. We'll work that out later. I think we might even give this thing a birthday, maybe end of the year, see how we're traveling. So I'm not too fast. I'm not going to sandblast it anyway. I don't really want to do stuff up in here. It's a little bit tedious. It's too close to the window too, although that doesn't really worry us. We use this product here, this masking tape here, to blast up to the edge of cars. Had an XB in there on Friday that we'd done. So windows don't really worry us, but it's just a clean up. I just can't really be bothered. So it'll get a bit of a tidy up. I might throw some primer on it later. See how we go. Right, off to the montage. Let's be precise, Jim Bob. I'm ready to try and tack this in. With the 8 hands that I need to tack it in, we'll see how we go. Guys, if you've got this far through the video, please jump on and like and subscribe to the channel. Also, leave a comment. Let us know what you do and don't like about it. Let us know what you want to see more of. Well, we have the towers, they're all welded in, all done. Doesn't look super pretty. I'm certainly no welder by any stretch, but I think it'll do the job. They're definitely gonna be strong enough. As you can see here, it's a little bit difficult to weld a heavy material to a light material. Well, in my expertise it is. A little bit of a tidy up, little just put a wire brush around it, make sure there's no dirt around it as I was going. I then Scotch Brighted around the back there, because we might actually paint that at some stage. But yeah, they're welded in. Pretty happy with that. Now we can essentially set up or mock up our towers to make sure everything fits. Notice when we pulled them apart, the bolts, and you would have seen in the video, some of the bolts were like stuck in there because they were just a normal, they would have been grade 8 bolt. They weren't stainless steel, so they got a little bit of rust on them. and it was just, yeah, it just could have been a little bit nicer. You see there's still a little bit of rust stain actually in there. So we're gonna go to a stainless steel. I had a pack of stainless stuff sitting on the shelf for bolts and things when we're putting stuff back together here in the workshop. So I thought, oh, I'll raid that, that'll be fine. So just to show you how this sort of works, these front two bolts were never used when it was mounted on the top. Now I've designed that so it picks them up as well. We've got our larger, I think they're about an M6 bolt. Don't think they're M8, M6. Those two go on there, like so. Then we have two of these tackers in here, and that is now your adjustable camber top. This is mounted to the top of the actual strut. It then sits in here, and you see it's got two arrows to delineate what degrees you're at. Now, you can't trust that degrees because we don't have it set to specifically where that is on the car, how that gives us exactly the degrees. But it's just an indicator now. And then there, held on with bolts through the center there. And they have 4 positions there, so you can allow you to go beyond so far. See if that bolt was in there, we can only get that far. If we add a bit more camber, for instance, move that bolt over to that one. Do that up. Now we can get to, no, that's as far as we can go anyway, really. So, it doesn't make any difference. Cool. So we're going to use that one. And we're going to use this one here. In 2 different places at the same time. We just done it finger tight, and now we can adjust the top in our camber, in it, with our tower. Ripper. Let's get that together, and we'll see what it looks like. So we're going to jump forward a little bit here. The car is now back together. It's a week before our race, and this is the first opportunity we're having to get the car back out on track. Now obviously there's a few things that we haven't addressed in this video, one being brakes, and there's so much to do on that one that we're actually going to leave that for a separate video all on its own. But for now, the car's here at Sandown. This is a practice day 1 week prior to the big race. So it's an opportunity for us to wrap our head around how the car behaves, get to know the track, and get to work through the little problems that may occur leading up to the big day. So I'm just going to leave you to sit back, watch us get through a lap of Sandown and enjoy.